Footnote 103. Those trials made by physician on himself have for him other and inestimable advantages. In the first place, the great truth that the medicinal virtue of all drugs, whereon depends their curative power, lies in the changes of health he has himself undergone from the medicines he has proved and the morbid states he has himself experienced from them becomes for him an incontrovertible fact. Again, by such noteworthy observations on himself, he will be brought to understand his own sensations, his mode of thinking, and his disposition, the foundation of all true wisdom, and he will be also trained to be what every physician ought to be, a good observer. All our observations on others are not nearly so interesting as those made on ourselves. The observer of others must always dread lest the experimenter did not feel exactly what he said, or lest he did not describe his sensations with the most appropriate expressions. He must always remains in doubt whether he has not been deceived, at least to some extent. These obstacles to the knowledge of the truth, which can never be thoroughly surmounted in our investigations of the artificial morbid symptoms that occur in others from the ingestion of medicines, see, sees entirely when we make the trials on ourselves. He who makes these trials on himself knows for certain what he has felt, and each trial is a new inducement for him to investigate the powers of other medicines. He thus becomes more and more practiced in the art of observing of such importance to the physician by continuing to observe himself, the one on whom he can most rely and who will never deceive him, and this he will do all the more zealously as these experiments on himself promise to give him a reliable knowledge of the true value and significance of the instruments of cure that are still to a great degree unknown to our art. Let it not be imagined that such a slight indispositions caused by taking medicines for the purpose of proving them can be in the main injurious to the health. Experiment, exper- Experience shows, on the contrary, that the organism of the prover becomes, by these frequent attacks on his health, all the more expert in repelling all external influences inimical to his frame and all artificial and natural morphic noxious agents, and becomes more hardened to resist everything of an injurious character by means of these moderate experiments on his own person with medicines. His health becomes more unalterable, he becomes more robust, as all experience shows. Explanation: there are many innumerable advantages with the trials made by the physician on himself. These advantages are as follows. Physician himself has undergone all the changes in the health, which is nothing but medicinal effects which are depending on curative power of medicine proved on himself. The whole morbid state he himself experiences due to medicinal effects of drug, so that becomes indisputable, non confusing facts for him. Again, by this noteworthy observation, by paying full attention on himself, he will be able to understand his own sensations, his mode of thinking, and his disposition. He will be trained to be a good observer, as all physicians ought to be a good observer. All our observations on others are not so interesting, while observation on self becomes more interesting. Always the other prover or observer are not able to describe their sensations, what they exactly feel or experience, and they always dread about whatever they said is exactly or appropriate to what they feel or experience or not. Other observer will remain always in doubt whether he has not been deceived the physician, at least to some extent. Such obstacles to the knowledge of truth can never be thoroughly overcome by experimenting the drugs on others and by investigating morbid state in others. Such obstacles cease entirely when we physicians make experiments on himself. The person who makes trials on himself, he knows certainly about what he felt, what he experienced, and each trial is a new enthusiasm for him to investigate the powers of other medicine. Such a way, physician becomes more and more practiced in the art of observing. The art of observing is very much important to the physician, and he is practiced in that by observing himself. He can most rely on himself, who will never deceive him. So he will do all more experiments with more and more enthusiasm on himself, with promise to give a reliable knowledge of true value and of more significance of this method of cure, which is to a great degree unknown to our art. For physician, he should not imagine that alterations in health caused by taking medicines for the purpose of proving can be injurious to health. On the contrary, experiments shows that by these frequent attacks by medicine on health, he, prover, becomes more expert in repelling, fighting all external influences inimical or dangerous to his body, and all artificial and natural morphic noxious agents, that is bacteria and viruses, and becomes more strong to resist everything of an injurious character by means of these moderate experiments on himself with medicines. His health becomes more unalterable, more stable, he becomes more strong, as all experiences shows.